You weren't drawn here by chance. There is something sacred unfolding in you, something quiet, invisible to the eye, yet unmistakable to the spirit. What you're sensing right now, that gentle disruption beneath the surface, isn't confusion. It isn't failure. It's the early sign of alignment. The frequency you've carried for so long no longer fits the rhythm of the life around you. And the reason it feels disorienting is because your soul is no longer willing to move to a tempo that doesn't honor its design. This isn't a breakdown. This is desynchronization, not in a mystical sense, but in the way truth quietly realigns the soul away from what it has outgrown. You're not falling apart. You're falling out of step with what was never meant to hold you forever. The shift began subtly. Rooms started to feel unfamiliar, not because they changed, but because you did. The words people spoke still made sense, yet they no longer settled right in your spirit. You could still smile, still respond, still go through the motions, but deep down, you knew something had already changed. The mask fit, but the meaning was gone. And so, the life you once wore like a garment now feels tight around your spirit. Chosen one, this in-between space you find yourself in, where your past feels close but strangely hollow, and your future is near but not yet clear. This is the threshold where clarity begins to settle within the spirit. It's what happens when your spirit stops collapsing into old expectations and begins standing upright in divine awareness. As it is written, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Romans 12:2. You are being renewed, and with renewal comes resistance, not from others, but from the parts of yourself, still trying to translate the new frequency through the language of the old season. Your discomfort is not a sign you're off track, it's a signal that the track has changed. Your inability to go back isn't stubbornness, it's spiritual maturation through truth. The old has gone, the new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. So if you're feeling misaligned, untethered, or strangely clear in a world that demands confusion, take heart. Your inner life is adjusting to truth. Your clarity is rising, and what no longer fits is simply revealing itself through timing. Now, as you step forward into this divine role, let it be known, you're listening, you're present, you're open. Type Amen in the comments if this message resonates in your spirit, not as a ritual, but as a witness to your readiness, to your release, and to the new rhythm forming within you. And stay with me until the very end. We'll close with a prayer that speaks directly into this sacred unfolding. You haven't lost your way. You've simply outgrown what was never yours to carry. Why the exit didn't come sooner? It's a question the soul has whispered more times than one could count. Why didn't the door appear when I begged for it? Why did it stay hidden while the wait became unbearable? The waiting felt like silence. The silence felt like abandonment. But what was actually unfolding was neither. It was preparation, not punishment. Alignment, not delay. Because exits in the divine order of things are not escapes, they are completions. The kind of exits that shift the course of your life don't show up when the pain peaks. They arrive when the pattern is complete, when the role you've been playing has reached its final line, when the energy that once agreed to stay no longer says yes. The truth is, if the door had opened any earlier, it would not have set you free. It would have simply relocated your captivity. A new scene, the same script, a change in scenery, but not in spirit. You see, freedom doesn't begin with movement. It begins with clarity. And clarity is born in tension when the soul stops making excuses for what it no longer resonates with. The scriptures say, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." John 8:32. But truth, in its raw form, often arrives uninvited. It exposes what's false. It makes comfort feel counterfeit. It brings light into rooms that once felt safe in the dark. That's what was happening to you all along. Not rejection, revelation. There is a moment, one that doesn't mark itself on a calendar, when the old rhythm no longer feels like home. No crisis announces it. No voice from the sky declares it. But something inside quietly refuses to keep pretending, and from that moment, even if the surroundings stay the same, something irreversible has already begun. What you once tolerated becomes too heavy to carry. What you once accepted starts to echo with dissonance. Not because you've become bitter, but because you've become honest. The reason earlier exits collapsed wasn't failure, it was grace. A mercy that would not let you walk into your next chapter wearing a version of yourself that no longer fit. Think of Jonah running in the opposite direction of his calling. The storm didn't come to destroy him, it came to reroute him. The delay, the pressure, the confusion, they were not barriers. They were boundaries, divinely drawn to protect the promise before its time. The exit you're now sensing didn't arrive late. It arrived exactly when your inner world became strong enough to hold what's on the other side. This is not about leaving a place, it's about leaving a pattern. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. Perception. That's what changed. You matured into the clarity that made the door visible. What once looked like a wall became a doorway, not because it moved, but because your eyes were finally ready to see. This is why going back no longer feels possible. Not because you're too proud to return, not because you're too broken, but because the person you used to be simply isn't here anymore. And the places that match that version now feel like echoes, not anchors. There's no shame in the hesitation you felt before. Every pause was a rehearsal in trust. Every detour was part of your preparation. The pain taught you how to discern. The longing taught you how to stay awake. And your spirit, though weary, never stopped listening. This chapter doesn't close with fanfare. It closes with quiet certainty. A knowing that doesn't ask for proof. A peace that doesn't need permission. Because what once held you now releases you, not in anger, in agreement. The door is not a reward, it is a reflection. It shows up when your soul is finally steady enough to walk through it and stay. And now, you are no longer seeking escape. You are standing in completion. You are not late. You are right on time. And so, the door appeared. Not as a metaphor, not as a poetic image, but as something real, energetic, internal, undeniable. It wasn't waiting outside a building or marked on a map. It surfaced within the soul the moment your inner world became too honest to ignore. This door does not open because you're ready on paper. It does not wait for comfort or consensus. It opens when something deep within you stops pretending. You've been told there's always time, that you can circle back, that there will be another chance, that clarity will come when you're less tired, more sure. But that's the voice of delay, the logic of an old timeline that survives by postponing truth. A timeline built not on clarity, but on compromise. This moment feels different because it is different. You are not standing at a crossroads of options. You are standing at a threshold of reality. The door is not merely symbolic, it is experienced internally, where conviction and truth meet. And it doesn't remain open for the part of you still hoping to negotiate. It doesn't bend for hesitation. Not because it is harsh, but because it is honest. When your field begins to stabilize around truth, your energy becomes incompatible with the patterns that once made room for pretending. The doorway becomes clearer, forming a quiet boundary that protects what has matured. As it is written, let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything more comes from confusion. Matthew 5:37. Truth does not stutter. When you reach a certain clarity of spirit, the noise around you begins to fall silent as clarity takes root within. The timeline, built on indecision, fades not out of cruelty, but because indecision is a decision. Delay is still a direction. This is the crossing, a moment when two realities no longer overlap, one fading, one forming. And no external sign will mark the split. It happens quietly, internally, in how you start saying no to what you once endured, in how your body stops tolerating what your mind still tries to explain, in how peace begins showing up not through control, but surrender. You may still be in the same room, wearing the same clothes, speaking the same lines, but something has shifted. You feel it. Not in your mind, but in your being. A narrowing, a tightening, a subtle pressure around choices you used to delay. It's not that time is running out, it's that illusion is. In the story of Lot's wife, she looked back not out of rebellion, but out of familiarity. And in that one glance, she anchored herself to a place her spirit had already left. Her story is not about punishment. It's about consequence and direction. You cannot walk forward with your heart turned backward. The irreversible point is not when you act, it's when you know. And once that knowing settles in, staying feels like shrinking. Remaining becomes a performance you can no longer carry convincingly. Even if you don't leave immediately, something begins to leave you. The energy, the desire, the agreement. Quietly, it all begins to dissolve. This door is not asking for a dramatic leap, it is asking for inner agreement. And agreement has weight. Once your spirit aligns with a higher rhythm, it's impossible to fully unhear what you've heard, to unsee what you've seen, to go back to a story that no longer holds your truth. This is why the pressure grows, not to scare you, but to push the false scaffolding into view, so you can recognize it, so you can let go, so you can cross honestly, instead of dragging the old self through a new beginning. The door doesn't close with noise, it closes with stillness. It closes when the version of you that needed delay no longer leads the way. There's no shame in how long it took. The pause was not wasted. Every hesitation was a signal tuning, every detour a refinement of your frequency. And now that your coherence has begun to rise, the door does what it was designed to do. It responds, not to fear, to truth. This is not about rushing forward, this is about being willing to stop shrinking backward. And if you've noticed that staying feels heavier by the day, it's not because you are failing, it's because you are crossing. Slowly, quietly, fully. The door is not out there, it's in you. And once it opens inward, it changes how you exist, no matter where you are. You are not waiting anymore, you are waking. You are not bargaining anymore, you are becoming. Now that the door has opened, not out there, but within, it's natural to ask, what does this mean for my actual life? Not in theory, not as a concept, but in the ordinary hours of the day, when you wake up, when you speak to others, when you sit with decisions no one else sees. Because while the shift may be spiritual, the integration happens in your body, in your nervous system, in the patterns of your everyday life. Crossing into a new timeline rarely looks dramatic. In fact, most of the time, it looks invisible to everyone else. It looks like stillness in places where you used to rush. It looks like pauses in places where you used to push. It looks like small, quiet honesty replacing performance. There are no fireworks here. But something inside you recognizes the change immediately. This is the beginning of embodied alignment. The first step is simple but sacred. Learn to pause instead of forcing yourself forward. When something you used to accept suddenly feels heavy, don't rush to override that feeling. Don't explain it away. Don't try to squeeze yourself back into the shape you outgrew. Pause and ask gently, is this asking for effort, or is it asking for truth? Many people stay stuck trying to fix what is no longer meant to be sustained. But you weren't called to improve your old life. You were called to recognize what no longer holds your frequency and to stop pouring energy into what's already releasing you. Another daily practice is simplifying your decisions. This is not the season for over-analysis, it's the season for clarity. Begin to notice what feels clean versus what feels noisy. Clean doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels steady, unremarkable, even quiet, but it leaves your spirit undisturbed. Noisy, on the other hand, often feels rushed or performative, even if it looks impressive from the outside. Choose what calms you after the fact, not what looks good in the moment. There is also deep wisdom in resisting the urge to explain yourself. You do not need to justify your evolution. You do not need to convince anyone that your shifts are valid. Over-explaining is a reflex from the old timeline, a way of earning permission by performing understanding. In this season, let your silence be a shelter, not a withdrawal. Let your actions speak. Let your boundaries be soft but steady. This is not avoidance. This is maturity. Create intentional stillness, not isolation, but space, even 10 minutes a day without input. No screen, no noise, no conversation, just breath, just presence. Many confuse restlessness for confusion, but often it's the soul asking for silence so it can hear itself again. You may find your conversations start to change. What once felt easy now feels distant. And instead of forcing agreement or pretending excitement, practice honest neutrality. You don't need to debate. You don't need to defend your inner shift. Sometimes maturity sounds like, "I understand," followed by silence. That, too, is discernment. Start to clean up your calendar, not out of urgency, but alignment. Scan your week. Where are you saying yes by habit, not by truth? Begin with one small no, one outdated obligation, one meeting that no longer holds meaning. You are not tearing your life apart. You're loosening the parts that no longer belong, so something new can find its place. There will be moments when the question rises, what am I supposed to do now? But in those moments, try asking something gentler. What feels steady in me right now? Because stability, not urgency, is the bridge between timelines. When you act from urgency, you recreate chaos. When you act from stability, your life reorganizes itself around peace. And finally, practice self-trust in small, ordinary ways. When something in you says, rest, rest. When you feel the pull to wait, wait. When you know a conversation is over, let it end. These aren't grand gestures, but they carry weight. Every time you follow the quiet, honest voice within, you teach your system it's safe to live in truth. You are not required to leap. You are not required to announce your arrival. You are only required to stop betraying what you already know. This is how the crossing becomes real, not through one bold act, but through steady, sacred agreement with what has already begun inside you. One day, someone may ask, what changed? And you may not have a dramatic answer, but you will know. Everything shifted the moment I stopped negotiating with what I had already outgrown. After the crossing, there comes a strange stillness, a kind of quiet that doesn't announce itself. The air feels the same. The people around you go on speaking as they always have, and yet nothing feels quite as it did before. You're not imagining this. It's not emptiness. It's the beginning of stabilization. The transition that just unfolded inside you was not theoretical, it was real. But spiritual shifts often echo forward into the physical world with a delay. While the heart may awaken in a moment, life takes time to rearrange around what has changed. That gap between what you now know within and what still looks unchanged outside is where the discomfort lives. It may feel like nothing has happened, but everything has. This is the space after clarity, before full confirmation, a quiet hallway between rooms. The Psalms speak of such in-between places. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him. Psalm 37:7. Stillness isn't inactivity. It's trust embodied. It's choosing not to manipulate your environment to keep pace with your awakening. It's letting the external world catch up to the reality your soul already carries. And in this sacred pause, something strange may begin to unfold, a soft flattening of emotional highs and lows. The rush of urgency that once drove your decisions now quiets. Praise doesn't land the same. Criticism doesn't sting like before. Even desire may dim, not because you've lost your fire, but because the flame is being recentered. Your inner world is no longer held together by emotional reactivity. Meaning is being rebuilt from truth, not from performance or old stories. This can feel like apathy, but it is actually peace. There may also be moments of unplaceable grief, a sadness without a name, a gentle ache that doesn't point to anything specific. This is not depression, it's release. You're letting go of who you were not in crisis, but in quiet recognition. That version of you didn't vanish, it simply completed its part. And like a traveler leaving a familiar shore, your soul is still turning toward new land while glancing back at waters that once held you. Even language starts to shift. You may speak words you've said 100 times before, only to realize mid-sentence they no longer reflect who you are. What once felt natural now feels performed. It's not that others have changed. It's that you're no longer in sync with roles that once gave you identity. This refinement can feel awkward at first, but it's not regression, it's a sign of coherence. And here lies a gentle warning. Do not rush to define yourself again too soon. The temptation in this void is to reach for a new label, a mission, a purpose, anything to escape the discomfort of not knowing. But don't confuse silence with absence. This is incubation, not inactivity. The prophet Elijah once waited for the voice of God in the wind, the fire, the earthquake, but it came in a whisper. 1 Kings 19:11, 1-2. Meaning often arrives not in spectacle, but in subtlety. In this phase, even relationships may feel out of tune, not because love has left, but because resonance has changed. You may still care deeply for those around you, yet sense an invisible distance. This isn't superiority, it's sensitivity. You're no longer orbiting the same emotional center. Honor that difference without judgment. Let it be what it is. The most healing thing you can do now is to normalize this liminal space. You are not stalling. You are settling. You are not disconnected. You are reattuning. Integration is rarely loud. It happens in the still choices, the gentle no, the unclenched jaw, the breath you didn't realize you were holding. You are building a life not on noise, but on knowing. And when the external world begins to mirror what's changed inside, when the new rhythm begins to shape your days, it will not feel like a grand explosion. It will feel like recognition. You'll look around one day and realize the room didn't change. You did. And in that moment, not only will you see the shift, you'll be living it. As the shift deepens, the path forward becomes quieter, clearer, and more confronting. Not because of what lies ahead, but because of what must be released to move toward it. What you fear most right now is not the future itself, it is the feeling of loss. But this fear does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. Your body remembers what it took to survive. It remembers the masks that once kept you safe. It remembers the rhythm of performing just enough to stay included, just enough to keep the peace, just enough to feel seen, even if it drained your soul to do so. And so now, as that rhythm dissolves, a quiet ache rises. This moment is not about losing places, people, or even certainty. It is about being removed from a pattern. And when patterns fall away, they often leave behind a shell, the echo of who you had to be in order to belong. You may feel roles slipping through your fingers, roles you wore so convincingly that others mistook them for your identity, and maybe you did, too. The dependable one, the strong one, the one who never needed help, the one who always knew what to say. These weren't lies, they were strategies. They were your way of staying in step with a world that often asked for your presence, but not your truth. And now those roles are crumbling, not in anger, not in chaos, just fading. You might feel exposed, as though the scaffolding has been stripped away. But this isn't collapse, this is clarity. You're no longer buffered by the old performance. And yes, that can feel raw, but it's also honest. The pace you once maintained, the urgency, the constant movement, the pressure to prove was never your nature. It was your survival. Now, your system wants something different. Stillness, space, room to breathe. You're not withdrawing because you're failing. You're withdrawing because your frequency is finally refusing what once flattened it. You're stepping back from conversations that once drained you. You're choosing silence over performance, truth over comfort. You've been letting go quietly, without fanfare, and that's why you're ready now. The grief you've been feeling isn't about one moment or one goodbye. It's the gradual ending of a rhythm that never fully held you. Some connections will dim without drama. They won't erupt. They'll simply soften, until one day you notice the resonance is gone. And though your mind may try to call it abandonment, it's not. It's alignment. As your signal sharpens, your energy no longer feeds what doesn't match it. This is not rejection, it is refinement. You may lose the ease of summarizing your life in a sentence. You may lose the confidence of quick answers. You may even lose the certainty that made you feel in control. But this emptiness isn't a void. It's not a punishment. It's a clearing. And in the clearing, a new rhythm begins to form, one built not on reaction, but on resonance. Scripture quietly echoes this wisdom. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. John 15:2. Loss in the hands of the divine is never wasted. It's not meant to break you. It's meant to reveal you. You're not being stripped. You're being shown who you've always been, beneath what you carried to survive. Let the roles fall. Let the urgency dissolve. Let the attachments that cannot stretch into your becoming drift without blame. Do not cling. Do not demonize what is ending. But do not romanticize it either. Witness it. Honor what it gave you. Then release it. You are not crumbling. You are being unburdened. And here's what's most important to remember. You can hold the in-between. You can carry the silence between stories. You can live through the unknown without rushing to fill it. You can let the old fall away and still be whole, because your wholeness never came from the roles, the pace, or the praise. It came from your presence, and that presence remains. This chapter doesn't end in certainty, it ends in surrender. Breathe. Notice where you still grip, where you still delay, where you still explain. Then listen quietly, not with your ears but with your being. And when it's time, let it lift, not with force, with trust. What is leaving was never your essence, only the mask. And what remains is not broken, it is free. As the transformation deepens and the old rhythm fades, something subtle but unmistakable begins to happen. It doesn't always come with conflict or confrontation. More often, it arrives quietly in a pause between words, in the space left unfilled, in a once familiar conversation, in the feeling that something has shifted, even if no one says so. When your signal changes, the shift doesn't stay contained inside you. It ripples outward, not loudly, not aggressively, but energetically, undeniably. The people around you, even if they can't name it, begin to feel the difference, and their responses may surprise you. Some may grow distant, others may draw nearer, confused by a silence that no longer feels like avoidance, but strength. A few may try, often unconsciously, to pull you back into the shape you used to be, not out of ill intent, but because your evolution unsettles the pattern they relied on. This is the natural result of coherence. You see, most relationships are built around predictability. The role you've played, whether it was the fixer, the listener, the peacekeeper, the achiever, became part of the unspoken agreement. And when you no longer perform that version of yourself, even gently, the dynamic begins to wobble. Your quiet may be read as withdrawal. Your new boundaries may feel like rejection to those who benefited from your lack of them. Your shift into presence may look, from the outside, like disinterest, especially to those who once relied on your performance to feel connected. But here is what must be said plainly. You are not responsible for managing other people's discomfort with your evolution. In the past, perhaps you did. You made yourself smaller to soothe another's anxiety. You softened your truth so others wouldn't feel threatened. You stayed in roles you had outgrown because leaving them would disrupt the peace, even if that peace cost you your voice. That was survival. That was the old timeline. But in this new space, those compensations will start to feel like a betrayal, not because they are wrong, but because they no longer match the integrity of who you are becoming. Even your body may respond with quiet resistance when you try to slip back into the old rhythm. A tightening in your chest, a draining of your energy, a silence that settles in after a conversation where you once shined but now feel invisible. These are not signs of failure, they are signs of completion. Some will begin to interpret your shift through the lens of their own unease. They may say, "You've changed," or "You're not like you used to be," or perhaps, "You've lost your spark." But these words don't reflect your decline. They reveal a gap between who you were and who you are now stepping into. It takes strength not to correct those narratives, to allow others to be wrong about you and still choose peace. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? If I was still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians 1:10. Clarity does not require agreement. Coherence does not require applause. Some connections will find their way back to you, reshaped and renewed. They'll settle into a new rhythm, one that allows for truth instead of performance, depth instead of obligation. Others will quietly fall away, not because of anger or blame, but because their season has passed. Their foundation belonged to a version of you that has now fulfilled its purpose. Even the testing of your boundaries is not a setback, it is a mirror. It shows you what you're still willing to carry and what you're ready to set down. These are not tests you need to pass with perfection. They are invitations to notice how it feels when you speak from your center or when you silence it. And in time, your social landscape will begin to change, not dramatically, but truthfully. The conversations may grow fewer but deeper. The silence, once awkward, may feel peaceful. The presence of others will no longer be measured by their proximity, but by how seen you feel in their company. This is not isolation, it is refinement. Your spirit is learning what it can hold without shrinking. The old you required belonging to feel safe. The evolving you is learning that safety begins in alignment. That alignment does not separate you from others, it filters, it clears the static, it removes friction created by false roles, and it makes room sacred, slow-growing room for those who can meet you where you are now. Those connections will come, not by force, but by resonance, not quickly, but in divine timing. Let the shifting happen. Let the relationships reorganize. You are not here to hold the scaffolding of every connection in place. You are here to remain in integrity. You are here to stay true, even when that truth creates change. Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. Proverbs 17:1. Peace is not loud. Alignment is not always understood, but both are worth protecting. Let what no longer fits fall away without shame, without blame. Let others feel what they need to feel. Let the new field shape itself without your interference. You do not need to manage what was never yours to control. Your task is coherence. And when you remain true to that, the rest will unfold quietly, faithfully, and in its own sacred time. By now, you've likely noticed that something in you no longer responds to life the way it once did. The old questions don't hold the same weight. The old ambitions don't stir the same urgency. And even the old way of defining yourself by title, by function, by the roles others once clung to, has begun to feel paper thin. This is not confusion, it's formation. You are no longer chasing a label, you are embodying a frequency. There comes a time when the soul no longer fits inside the words used to describe it. When the names you used to carry begin to feel more like armor than truth. You may be tempted, even now, to find a new title to grasp, something to answer the voice that asks, "What are you becoming?" But that voice belongs to an old rhythm, one that measured purpose through certainty and identity through performance. The new role forming in you will not answer to that voice, because it is not a role in the old sense. It is not a task you perform. It is not a status you display. It is not something to prove. It is not even something to fully explain. It is emergence, sacred, slow, and deeply real. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. John 3:8. This emergence begins beneath language. It shows up not in declarations, but in how your body breathes differently now, in how your attention no longer clings, in how your nervous system longs for steadiness more than stimulation, in how your tolerance for misalignment dissolves without fanfare. This is the shift. You are no longer living inside a definition. You are living inside a becoming. Trying to define it too early, to map it, name it, or explain it would only shrink it. The impulse to do so isn't wrong. It's simply the echo of the old self, still trying to protect you by asking for clarity before movement. But that kind of protection no longer serves. You don't need certainty to be safe. You need coherence. And coherence doesn't ask you to predict the future. It asks you to stay present with what's stabilizing right now. Notice your body is already responding. You no longer tolerate conversations that drain you. You don't chase validation the way you once did. You stop mid-sentence because something inside you no longer agrees with the performance. You rest without guilt. You speak less often and more truthfully. These small shifts aren't accidents. They're the evidence of emergence. The path ahead will not be revealed through striving. It will respond to your alignment. The new chapter will not arrive through urgency. It will unfold through resonance. This is why the craving for a 5-year plan is losing its grip. The chase for external approval is wearing thin. What you once called ambition now feels like noise. That is not failure, that is clarity. And clarity, unlike control, does not need to announce itself. It simply is. You are beginning to trust your internal timing more than the timelines of the world. You are no longer seeking permission to change. You are no longer performing alignment. You are living it. And that's the beginning of authority. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that no longer needs to explain its presence. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. You do not have to tell people who you are becoming. You will show them simply by being. Some days will feel unsteady, like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, but that's only because the old scaffolding is dissolving. You are not falling. You are making space for a new structure to rise. So do not rush to define what is unfolding. The sacred does not arrive on a deadline. Let it form in its own rhythm. Let it take shape in your gestures, your speech, your stillness, your posture, your presence. Let it shape you before you try to shape it. This is why you felt less drawn to seek answers, why noise has become unbearable, why you'd rather feel the truth quietly than speak words that no longer hold weight. It's not withdrawal, it's wisdom. It's not disinterest, it's discernment. And now, as your inner signal stabilizes, the outer world will begin to shift around you. Not instantly, not all at once, but with a strange, gentle accuracy. The conversations, opportunities, and people who resonate with your field will begin to appear. Not because you hunted them down, but because you stopped hiding from your own frequency. There is nothing to prove, nothing to rush. Just one instruction now: remain present with the formation. Let your coherence speak louder than your explanations. Let your stillness hold more truth than your plans. Let your no be gentle and final. Let your yes be rooted, not rushed. You are not lost. You are being clarified. You are not waiting for your role to begin. It has already begun in how you move, how you choose, how you hold yourself when no one's watching. The old identity needed to be named. This one only needs to be lived. You are no longer a seeker. You are an embodiment. Where others wait for proof, you become it. Where others wait for certainty, you carry the calm of alignment. And though part of you may still reach for the comfort of the known, another part, the truer part, knows this: you are not who you were before the exit. You are not who you were before the crossing. And nothing behind you can recreate what has already changed in you. So let the world catch up, or not. Let others misunderstand, or not. Let the path unfold without your interference. Because what is forming in you now is not fragile, it is simply sacred. And sacred things do not compete for attention, they become undeniable over time. This chapter closes not with a conclusion, but with a quiet seal, a stillness that says, the shift has settled, the season has shifted, and something new is quietly beginning. No announcements, no performance, just presence, just peace, just you, walking in alignment with a role that does not need a name to be real. And now, as the final threads are woven and the silence settles, know this: what has unfolded in you through this journey is not a concept to be grasped, but a reality that has already begun to take root. You are not being asked to perform your transformation, nor to explain it, measure it, or prove it. You are being asked to live it, quietly, steadily, faithfully. The shift you've experienced is not the end of something, it is the birth of a deeper way of being. The clarity you carry may not always be visible to others, but it will shape your path with precision. You will no longer need to chase what is aligned with your spirit, because what is meant for you now responds to the frequency you no longer need to distort. From here, the task is not to build a perfect future, but to honor the truth already rising within. Before we close, let us enter into a moment of prayer, not to ask for permission to become, but to come into stillness with what has already begun. Let this prayer meet you where you are. Let it hold the parts of you that feel ready, and the parts that still need rest. You are not behind, you are not broken. You are being made whole in a new rhythm. Holy God, source of all truth, all movement, and all stillness, we come before you not in loudness, but in reverence. We do not bring a list of demands. We bring an open heart. Thank you for the quiet work you've begun in the lives of those who have listened, the unseen shift, the soft breaking of old rhythms, and the courage you have planted in the soul that no longer wants to pretend. Thank you for not rushing us, for allowing us to grow in silence, to loosen what no longer fits, to release what we clung to, not out of love, but survival. Thank you for reminding us that we do not need to chase identity, that we are not the roles we've played, not the performances we've perfected, not the patterns we once submitted to in fear. Today, Lord, we bless the threshold, the space between the no longer and the not yet. We bless the hollow hallway that doesn't make sense to the world, but feels like home to the soul that has outgrown certainty. We bless the one listening who feels disoriented but not disconnected, who feels stripped but not abandoned, who feels different but doesn't yet know what they are becoming. You know, you have always known. Your word says in Isaiah 30:21, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. May that voice grow louder than fear, louder than performance, louder than the pull to return to what you've already called us out of. We surrender the pressure to define this season. We lay down the urgency to explain our shift to those who cannot feel it. We trust that what you are forming in us does not need defense. It only needs devotion. Let the ones who feel unseen be reminded, you see in secret. Let the ones who feel lonely remember, you reorganize connection by alignment, not popularity. Let the ones who feel weary remember, stillness is not failure, it is restoration. We release the illusion that told us we had to earn rest. We break agreement with the lie that said transformation only counts when others notice. We refuse to collapse into roles you never asked us to carry. Instead, we receive coherence. We receive the new rhythm. We receive the freedom to walk in alignment without apology. Lord, for the one who has felt torn, between staying small and stepping forward, between being palatable and being whole, give them peace that passes understanding. Let them know that clarity comes not from control, but from you. Let them know that becoming is a process. You author not the world, not their timeline, not even their own fear. Let them feel the nearness of your presence, even in the silence. Let them trust the shift even when there's no map. May they stop looking for mirrors and begin listening to your voice. May they stop rehearsing for applause and begin resting in truth. May they stop asking, "What should I do now?" and begin asking, "What is stabilizing in me?" Because what is stabilizing in them is holy. You are doing a new thing, and you are not late, and neither are they. God of Abraham, who called him out without showing him the full path, teach us to walk by faith, not formulas. God of Moses, who met him in the wilderness, not the palace, remind us that your presence is enough, even when the surroundings stay dry. God of Mary, who carried the word in silence before the world ever recognized it, let us carry what is growing, even when no one else sees. We will not abandon what you've planted in us just because it's quiet. We will not abandon alignment just to be understood. We trust that what is aligned in you will always bear fruit in your time. So now we stand, not because we have answers, but because we have peace. Not because the path is easy, but because the presence is real. Seal this word in the hearts that received it. Protect the seed that was planted today. Cover the ones who are walking away from the old, even when they don't yet know what the new looks like. You go before us. You surround us. You are within us. And that is enough. In Jesus' name, Amen. If this prayer spoke to a place in you that words rarely reach, let it mark this moment, not as a performance, but as a recognition of what's becoming real. Leave a comment with the words, "I am walking in alignment," if this message met you where you are. Subscribe for more messages like this, not to chase content, but to stay connected to the quiet rhythm already unfolding within you. Until next time, walk gently, walk true, and walk in peace.